You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Broadcast. National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1, future, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, National Hockey League Conference playoffs, and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing odds. Betting opportunities include versus the spread and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info. The Bet Us Opportunities webpage for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. Get out there and check out betus.com. Make sure you go through nessp.info, though. That's the Northeast Stream Sports website, and everybody can make some money. Bet responsibly, though, guys. College football's here. Keith is not betting responsibly. He's losing nearly every wager he puts out there, but things will get better this week. Lots to talk about. Lots of big games. Syracuse, I see Dave Guyette out here this evening. Your Syracuse Orangemen, my friend, are playing very, very good football. As I said earlier in the year, I think Syracuse will be in play along with others as a sleeper in the ACC this year. And we'll look at all those conferences and some of the playoff potential, conference championship at-large potential for everybody, including the group of 5 schools. Interesting week last week. We'll look at some of the big games. Notre Dame gets back in a big way. We said they had to get some towel points, and they did that. LSU got some help. I don't know if James is with us tonight, James Martin, but LSU gets a little help. But at the end, they win the games. I say all the time, don't put yourself in a position to get beat by referees. And South Carolina played a really game, but gets beat. Bama goes up, wins in a tough place at Camp Randall. Not a great Wisconsin team, but does very well. UNLV with a nice win over Kansas. So lots of good stuff going on, guys. Arch Manning makes his debut. Well, a debut. I shouldn't say his debut, but big time debut. Plays great. There's no quarterback controversy in Texas yet, by the way, guys. I'm pretty sure Cam Ewers probably won't play this week. But when he's healthy, he'll be back. He's a seasoned veteran here. There he is. LSU got lots of help. Wins are wins, though, and I always say, James, they got more than one call, but never put yourself in a position to get beat by referees. I've said this forever. And, South Carolina had LSU really reeling early in this game. They let them back in the game. And again, that's when you put yourself in a position where referees can hurt you. So anyway, that was one of the that's probably the biggest game from last week. I mean, as I look at last week's games, a nice win for Kansas State against Arizona on Wednesday night. I said, as I said, UNLV, one of the surprises. I said before the year, they'd be one of the most improved teams in the country, and they're going to be in play in the group of 5 allotment of playoff bursts. Ole Miss rolls again. Notre Dame with the style points. Look at Purdue's not one of the top teams in the Big Ten, but Purdue's not a horrible football team. And you go in there on the road and put up 66. They used Riley Leonard a lot better than they did against NIU. And again, take nothing away from NIU beating Notre Dame 2 weeks ago. Right now, they would be the group of 5, bid in the playoff. But Notre Dame just had to figure out how to use Riley Leonard. And I think last week they actually let him use his legs a little bit, get outside the pocket and throw the football. And it behooved them to do so. And you saw the result there. But Notre Dame's going to need to run the table. I don't think they can get in the playoff with 2 losses. I don't think. But running the table shouldn't be out of the question. And I am not back on the Marcus Freeman Notre Dame bandwagon. I'm still upset about what I saw against NIU, and this team can't continue to lose those types of games. I'll give them credit for one thing. Right now, for one game, they figured out how to use their quarterback. LSU is likely an 8-4 team. I would say that's probably fair. You know what? Let me look at your schedule, James. I don't think I've done it. I don't know if I've done that this year with your team or not, but since you're here, let's go through the schedule. We like to do that with some of these teams at different points of the season. So right now you're 2-1. Tough loss to USC. We know how that turned out. You got UCLA at home this week. You should win that game. All right. That's 3 wins. South Alabama, you're not going to lose to. That's 4 wins. You're going to get beat by Ole Miss. At Arkansas is not looking as easy as it did, but I'm going to give you that win. There's 5. At A&M, I think is a loss. Alabama at home is a loss. You're going to beat Florida 6, Vanderbilt 7, Oklahoma right on the button, James. 8 wins. I agree 100%. Rick Sherlock. Good evening to everybody. Georgia does deserve to drop to 2, but at the end of the day, these polls, they're not going to matter at the top, right? I mean, the chances are very good that the top 4 conference winners are going to get the 4 buys. What order you're in isn't really going to matter, I don't think. It's too far to look. You can't look that far ahead for matchups. But in a week that didn't have a lot of movement in the top 25, a couple teams moving up a spot or 2. Texas gets the number 1 ranking, I think, for the first time since 2003. Is that right? Can't be that long ago, can it? I think it is, though. Anyway, congratulations to them. 35 first place votes, 23 for Georgia, 5 for Ohio State. Other teams just a little bit up and down. We did have Boston College and Arizona drop out. A lot of teams, people thought you can't. Boston College played a good game on the road, but they're the 25th ranked team in the country. It's unlikely when you got teams behind you that are playing well, like A&M played, Illinois played well. You're going to hang on to that spot. So Illinois and A&M jump in. BC and Arizona fall out. Other than that, I mean, not a lot of movement. Biggest movement was Northern Illinois up to 23 without playing a game, I believe. Miami jumping a couple spots to 8. Miami looks great. Cam Ward. Again, I want to remind everybody, Cam Ward was a 0-star quarterback coming out of high school. 0 stars. That's the same number of stars I had. 0. Now he's done a little better than I have, quite frankly, this year. By the way, he didn't play the second. We were talking Sunday about running up the score. Miami had their second stringers in nearly the entire second half, if not the entire second half. The backup quarterback was playing, and you can't tell kids not to play, right? I don't know if Danny's with us. I think Danny might be traveling. Danny, I know, was big on, not blowing teams out or running up scores. But to me, again, as long as you're trying to score, I'll try to score. And it's not my job to stop me. It's yours. Especially if I don't have my starters in. And my only exception is the Naval Academy or any of the military academies. Don't run it up there. Robert Butler's here. Thanks for the kudos. Great game with South Carolina LSU. It was a fun game to watch. I had both them on and the Missouri and BC game on as well. Both fun games to watch. And enjoyed both of them as on the dual action last week outside, enjoying the late summer weather. We had a great weekend up here. But Robert, thanks for stopping in, and make sure you check out Sports Scopes with Robert Butler at 8:00 every night, I think, right here on Roku. I didn't even welcome everybody in. Welcome everybody on Facebook that's watching us on our Facebook page, our YouTube page. We're live on Roku, the national streaming sports show. Thumbs up, DDH. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Does some great stuff, including the Sports Corner with Jim Frazier from 4 to 6 p.m. every Tuesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll give a shout out to our groups as we go along here. Sports Authorities, John Gonzalez, the Bottom Line Sports with Flo and the gang. There's so many to mention. I got to wait for myself a little. Vanderbilt upset by Georgia State after Vanderbilt put a whacking on Virginia Tech earlier. Georgia State's not a bad football team, by the way. It's not a great team, and nobody in the SEC probably ought to be losing to Georgia State. But it tells you about the state of some of these teams. I was not a big fan of Virginia Tech coming in. They got beat by Vanderbilt, and now Vanderbilt goes down to Georgia State. So that's an upset. Yeah, but not huge in my mind. Vandy lost a huge letdown to those folks in Tennessee for sure. And speaking of Tennessee with a big game this week, at least a 6-point favorite, maybe a full touchdown. Not sure. I'd have to look in a little bit. At Oklahoma, they haven't been a full touchdown or a 6-point dog at home since the year before Bob Stoops was hired. The end of the Blake era, they were 4-6 that year, I believe. They won that game, by the way. Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken. But Tennessee, are they for real? Because we have just seen them destroy teams. They look so athletic, but this team hasn't won a real big road game in the SEC, and it seems forever since Peyton Manning was there. Maybe before that or since that, but not many. So are they for real? Oklahoma's 3-0, but it's a pretty weak 3-0. Josh Heupel goes back to where he starred and won a national championship and got fired as an assistant by the same Bob Stoops that he played for. The SEC's loaded. I said in the beginning of the year, I'm having trouble with my chair tonight. Yeah. Time for a new chair. Danny is traveling to Camden. I always forget the dates he's there. I think it's today, tomorrow, and Friday, maybe into Saturday. Where was I? Oh, Tennessee. Hey, I'm starting to think the SEC is going to have 6 teams. I said 5. Now I'm starting to think 6. So we're going to look a little bit at that here in just a bit. I'll be coming on anytime you want, Robert. You let me know, and we can do 8:30 on a Wednesday night. Easy enough. Love going out with Robert. He's the best. Robert is so good. NFL stuff, Robert knows the stuff before the wires get the information. Robert is so wired in. CA's with us. How you doing, CA? Good to have you with us. Whoops. Sorry, Neil. Just want to go back here. Big one they may cover, but it's a road game. And they do have trouble, and Heupel coming back to where he played, of course, and got fired as an assistant, as I said, by the same guy he won a national championship for as a coach. Interesting dynamic there. Bob Stoops hires Josh Heupel, fires Josh Heupel, and hires Lincoln Riley, and we know what happened after that, so that's pretty interesting. Heupel will get revenge and beat up OU. I think so too, Neil. And, tough loss for your team Saturday, Neil. Again, I always say don't put yourself in a position to get beat by refs. And South Carolina, I feel like they had LSU, their foot on their throat, and they couldn't do it. But well-played game. I'm still Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber. Oh, my God. Isn't that awful? Shane Beamer, coach. Coach Shane Beamer fan. Sorry. I got myself all riled up with this whole Bieber thing. I'm a big Justin Bieber fan. You might think. When in doubt, go the SEC team. That's a good, actually, that's not a bad strategy, Neil. Oh, I had a tough week last week. First, I've had a couple of tough weeks betting college football. I'll tell you right now. I bet Texas A&M last week was my only winner. I bet Georgia and Missouri. Best dressed in podcast, Robert Butler. Absolutely. We got to get the girls behind her, and he looks like Robert Palmer. Get the music playing. Right? Am I right? Am I right, Rick, or no? Extra motive. Ref stole it. I mean, you lost it too, Neil. Yeah, again, we can only blame refs to such a point. I mean, I'm very consistent with this. I'm consistent when it's my teams, and I'm consistent when it's anybody else's teams. Never put yourself in a position to get beat by the referees. South Carolina had control of that football game, and they let LSU back in it. And they allowed it to be close enough where the referees could affect the outcome. Don't do that. Well, that said, they played well. This team wasn't winning a national championship, but this team will, I think, finish respectively and get a decent bowl game. Motivation. Game day in Norman this week. It's a good spot for them to be. I love game day. Robert's working on the girls. I love those two videos. I'm trying to think of the name of the songs now, and they're not coming to me. But Robert Palmer, one of my favorites. I always think of Robert Palmer when I see Robert dressed to the nines. Girls ought to be behind him. You should use that as your theme song, too. Which one is it going to be? I got the song in my head, and it's probably going to bug me all night now. I could start singing it, and I embarrass myself terribly, but oh my gosh. By the way, speaking of the speaking of the military academies, Air Force did not play they did play last week. They're the only one to play. The other two were on a bye. They got beat by Baylor 31-3. We like to give the military academy updates. You know, I think I'm going to go through this right now. Let's go through. I want to go through I'm going to go each conference, and I'm going to steal this a little bit from Stuart Mandel at The Athletic, because he does a really good rundown of each conference. And why am I not seeing it? Because I had it a second ago. No, I don't have it. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can get to this. Oops. Bear with me, boys and girls, as we try to get to. I thought this was the one. I guess this isn't the one. His playoff bracket right now. I was going to go through the conferences because I did have myself a little story to take a look at. But anyway, he's got the number 1 seed as Ohio State, Georgia, Miami 3rd, Kansas State 4th is the winner out of the Big 12. I'm not so sure about Kansas State. Big game in the Big 12 this week, by the way, with Utah and Oklahoma State. It's going to go a long ways. I like Utah to get that spot he's given to Kansas State. But he's also got then at 5, he's going to have I'm sorry. By the way, I guess I thought the group of 5 team got the 5th seed. They do not. So he's got that 5 Texas, and they would play Nevada, Las Vegas, who would be the 12 seed as the group of 5 representative. Certainly doable. At 6, he's got Alabama playing the number 11 Utah. So he's got 2 teams getting in from the Big 12. None of them the one I like. Well, Utah I like to win the conference. At 7, he's got Oregon, who I'm not sold on. I got a message from our old buddy Augustin. Simply Irresistible. Thank you. Hang on there. Linda got me. Simply Irresistible and Addicted to Love. The 2 best music videos ever made. Thank you, Linda. He'll have Oregon against Penn State. I'm not sold on Oregon. Struggled in every game. This week they won a decent. I shouldn't say that. They won a decent size by a decent size margin against Oregon State. Got some big news in the Pac-12 that we'll talk about here in a second as well. The Pac-12 is back. At number 8 is Tennessee playing Ole Miss. So he's going to have, and he doesn't go any further than that. That's just the bracket. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams out of the SEC. They could be up to 6. They really could. See what else did I miss here? There's Robert Scott, Addicted to Love the 80s. Those are the 2 best music. No. Is there a quarterback controversy in Texas? As I mentioned, Arch Manning had a great game last week, running the ball, throwing the ball, but they're playing, again, Texas San Antonio, well-coached team by Coach Traylor. Second year in the AAC. They're still not nearly on the level as Texas. And, Cam Ewers is a good quarterback. They can win with either one. There's zero reason if Cam Ewers can play that he won't play. He won't play this week. They're playing UL Monroe. There's no reason to play him this week. But they're going to need him in 3 weeks or 4 weeks so when they play Georgia. It's going to be exciting. There's some big games coming up, man. Georgia's got a gauntlet to run. They better play better. That's a wake-up call. I know Rick's a big Georgia fan. The sky's not falling for me with them just winning this game at Kentucky, which is usually a tough place to play. Now, let me get some. I think we need some electrolytes tonight. South Carolina went in there and dismantled Kentucky, well coached by Mark Stoops. But Georgia could not figure anything out. They just couldn't get anything going offensively. Out of sync. But I think they'll fight back. I think they're looking ahead. They got a gauntlet, as I said, to run in this SEC. They could play as many as 5 top 10 teams in the conference. That's a lot, guys. And look, I love it. Listen, Manning's going to be a great quarterback, and he's going to wait his time. Unless Ewers gets hurt badly or comes back and is ineffective. We talked about this on the National Streaming Sports Show here on the show before this. Unless Cam Ewers is ineffective for multiple games during the regular season, I don't think any way Arch Manning gets in a game of importance because Ewers struggles. If it happens during a regular season a few times, well, you might see that. But if he comes in, he plays a Heisman level, Heisman contender level performance, and this team is undefeated going into the playoff, they're not going to ever pull Cam Ewers for Arch Manning. That's not to say Arch couldn't play and do just as well, but he came back here to play, and he's going to play. Robert with Mac, and if you can get the girls, Mac has got your song, You're Addicted to Sports. Nice. There you go. That would be awesome. Manning hype already a buzz on the internet. Again, you got to consider it. And listen, he's likely to start this week, Robert, and he's going to have big numbers again against UL Monroe. It's just, this is the gimme for Texas. So this isn't a situation where Cam Ewers was playing badly, Now, unless he sits out 4 or 5 games, and an oblique can be a little tricky. I didn't even know you had obliques until about 10 years ago, by the way. Thought they were stomach muscles. Anyway. I digress. What else we got here? SEC's filled with Hannibal Lecters. Yeah, well, they will cannibalize each other. And that's the problem, right? God, I wish I could find this. I had this article I wanted to go through. Can't find it now. Cam Ward, by the way, talking about Miami. Miami, I've been here with Miami before. They got South Florida this week. It's probably and South Florida is not that great. Probably the toughest matchup they've had. That's how bad Florida is, by the way. Little shocked Billy Napier didn't get fired this week. It was looking like he was going Monday, but for some reason they spared him. That's true. I'm with you. I'm not sure how we're talking about maybe the Cannibals. Alabama looks great so far. They all look great. I mean, you look at the SEC. Let me get back to the SEC. I mean, will they cannibalize each other? Probably. Again, it depends on who plays who. Georgia's probably Florida's got the toughest schedule, but Georgia's not that far behind. Not everybody's got a conference game even in yet. Alabama hasn't played in conference, but talking about who brought that up, Robert. Alabama's played really well under Kalen DeBoer. Jalen Milroe, I would say, is a top 3 contender. I would put Cam Ward at the top of that list right now for the Heisman. And Hunter Henry. I said Hunter Henry should win it, but he's going to have trouble winning it because these quarterbacks are going to have such outrageous numbers because of the way the college game is played. I think, did I say Hunter Henry? Oh, my God. Travis Hunter. If I said Hunter Henry, I'm about to jump off the air and never come back. Travis Hunter is the best player in the country. Hunter Henry is only the best player in Foxborough right now. But Jalen Milroe has played excellent. I said he was a perfect fit for Caleb DeBoer's offense. He's played terrific. Wisconsin struggled a bit in Luke Fickell's first couple of years up there, but Camp Randall's a tough place to go play on the road, and they dismantled that team. And I thought it would take this team a little while to get going. It's going to be very interesting. This SEC race, it's going to depend on who plays who. Georgia is a shoo-in for the playoff. Alabama's right now looks like a shoo-in for the playoff. Ole Miss looks like a shoo-in. They're destroying everybody. Now, Lane Kiffin's got to show that he can beat Georgia and or Alabama at some point. Tennessee looks like a shoo-in at the moment. We know Texas is. That's 5 teams. Now, you might get a sleeper in there like Missouri, who squeaked one out against BC last week. But win those games. I can't give Georgia a pass for winning, looking ugly against Kentucky when Missouri, and not give Missouri a pass for beating more handily a similar talented team at BC at home. So this league is just rough. The Manning take. Gotcha. Mac is rubbing off on you, Hunter Henry. Mac, are you still there? I didn't get a chance to point out, but Jeff Rutledge didn't go to Duke. Jeff Rutledge went to Alabama. Just an FYI. A little better football school. Speaking of Wisconsin, there's Paul Spada. Boston Paul, also known as. He comes in as Paul Spada tonight. Big Oregon fan up there in Wisconsin. Go figure this guy out. I love you, Paul. He's up there in Wisconsin rooting for the Patriots on Sundays and Oregon on Saturdays. Listen, Oregon better get it going. I want to look at Oregon's schedule. I liked Oregon, by the way, to win the Big Ten. Did I say win? Yeah, I did say win the Big Ten, and they were going to beat Ohio State in the playoff in the conference championship game. Now, again, you are what your record says you are, which the fat bastard always used to say. I'll let him go unnamed here, but he coached some of our favorite football teams. I mean, Idaho, okay. You go on the road, you win by 10. Boise State, you need a field goal at the end of regulation to beat them at home. Boise State's really good, by the way. They're one of the group of 5 contenders for sure. And you blow away Oregon State on the road. Oregon State's not very good. But you've gotten through that 3-0. You got UCLA's 4-0. Michigan State should be 5-0. You're going to get to Ohio State 5-0. You got them at home. That's going to be a huge game for this. I guarantee you we'll see game day up in Eugene. Is it Eugene? I think that's where they play. On October 4th. That's going to be a fun game. And I'm going to have them losing that game. Sorry. 5-1. Beat Purdue 6-1. Beat Illinois 7-1. At Michigan 8-1. Unless things change there a lot. 9-1 Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington. There's probably going to finish 11-1. It's a very favorable schedule to me for Oregon. Their first year in the Big Ten. Illinois is better than we thought, but they're not going to lose at home to Illinois. They're not losing at Purdue. You just saw Notre Dame win at Purdue by 60. They're not losing at home to Maryland. They're probably not losing at Wisconsin, although watch out for that game. And they're not losing to Washington, who lost a lot this year. So Oregon's probably fine, Paul. Really wish I could find that article I had open. Damn it. Really ticks me off. The Pac-12 is back. Or are they back? If you remember when the Pac-12 dissolved and they left Oregon State and Washington State behind, Washington State and Oregon State went to court to keep the trademark, to keep the logo, to keep the money in the coffers. And they kept a lot of it. And they're going to need it because they've now coaxed 4 teams from the Mountain West, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State to join them in the Pac-12. I'm guessing Cal and Stanford probably wish they stuck around right now and didn't run off to the ACC, but they didn't know what was going to happen here. The bigger question is what the Pac-12 going to do after this. They need more than just 6 teams. I'll talk about some ACC teams, AAC teams, excuse me. Memphis. By the way, it looks like Arizona State may leave the Mountain West to go to the AAC. I've said forever, wouldn't it be fun to get all the military academies in one conference? And now it looks like it could happen. So we're not done with all this musical chairs in college football. I mean, nobody's safe right now. I mean, if I'm the Big Ten, if I'm the Pac-12, if Clemson and FSU find their way out of the ACC, listen, geography doesn't mean a god darn thing anymore. Bring them west. Maybe coax Miami with you. Maybe have they're not going to play divisions, but maybe have a whole southeastern part of the Pac-12. Why not? It's only a different ocean. Don't let oceans divide conferences. Jeez. But I'm serious. I mean, if you want to compete and you want to get back at a power conference level, you're going to need a Florida State, not just a. You're going to need, and no matter what Florida State's current situation, it's still a premier program. So is Clemson. So is Miami. This is what I would do. Raid the ACC, just like you got raided. I don't like it. Some of the big news. I had other news off the field too. And I've been trying to concentrate on the field, not get into some of this. A little peek into the future as we talk about more realignment. Tennessee is going to increase ticket prices next year, and they will say that you're being charged a 10% talent fee on all tickets. So they can pay NIL and not NIL, but partially the NIL fees, but also the fees that they can just pay out the $21 million that each program has to spend. Not just football, but all their sports programs have to spend to lure players to their program. So you didn't think it'd be passed on to you? All you guys who said they deserve to be paid and get some of the money, you didn't think the cost would be passed on to you? You think this is the last team that's going to charge a talent fee? No, not right. Not going to happen. Days in Baltimore watching the Orioles at Kid of Yards. I was looking for him, and I forgot he was traveling. He wanted me to join him there, and I would like to have joined him there, but just too much going on in the real work world for now. We'll let that be. Time we got. What else did I want to talk about this week? We're going to look at the games coming up this weekend. I like, there's some big games this week. Bigger games than you think. I mean, who would have thought, like, Friday night, we got a nice Big Ten matchup. Two ranked teams, Illinois at Nebraska. I think Nebraska is going to be 6-0 going to 6 or 7-0 going to Ohio State late in October. We're probably going to get waxed there, but we got here. Patrick Bernard, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you with us tonight. Trying to see what you got there in your, what's behind you there in your profile picture, Patrick. Good to have you with us, Patrick. Who you root for in college football? Who's your team, man? Almost said dude. I hate dude. I had people call me dude at work this week. 64-year-old guys don't get called dude. Penn State. I'm going to guess you're a Penn State fan. You know, that forces me to go where I don't like to go. When is James Franklin? So I got to know your opinion. Let me see. Patrick, if you're a Penn State fan, when's James Franklin going to start beating Michigan? You better beat him this year because you're not going to get many more chances teed up for you like this year. And he's not beating Ohio State. This guy doesn't beat top 10 programs. Well, they're playing well right now. A little too close for comfort against Bowling Green 2 weeks ago. Nice win at West Virginia. They Kent State, who they will destroy. Tennessee was up like 56-0 at halftime against Kent State. Then they get a ranked Illinois team. Then they get UCLA. They're going to go to South Carolina. I'm sorry, Southern California. At USC throws me off. That's a losable game, by the way. They got to go to Camp Randall. Then they get Ohio State. They don't have Michigan in the regular season, so that'll help them. They're going to lose Ohio State. They'll probably finish 11-1. And if they get to the Big Ten championship game, they possibly get in that large team bid, but they're not gonna win the Big Ten and get that bid. Patrick said beat reporter for the Philadelphia Wings. That's me covering one of their games. That's cool. I'm trying to see what it is. That's all. Awesome. Good to have you with us, Patrick. James Franklin's a joke. There you go. 0-11 against. He does have some wins. 0-11 is the last 11 games. I want to say he's 4-18, if I'm not mistaken. 4-17. Against Michigan OSU. Let's see. James Frick. That's a video. Don't give me that. His record against Michigan, 4-16. This is against Ohio State and Michigan, 4-16. I was off by 1. You know, you can Big Ten and against top 10 teams, it's awful. Oh my God, Carlton. Where we got to go? I know I missed a couple of comments here, but Carlton's with us. Good afternoon or good evening, Carlton. Good to have you with us. Franklin's the GOAT of what? No. Well, now you've confused me. So Franklin's the GOAT, but no one will beat Georgia. Listen, Georgia's got a tough road. Rick Sherlock will agree with me, I think. Carlton, and we're going to take a quick look right now at since we're on this. Let me get back to Georgia. They may play 5 top 10 teams. They got Alabama, by the way, on the 28th. They got this week off. Then they got Alabama at Alabama. That's not going to be easy. I do think they win. They're going to get Auburn. Then they got Mississippi State. Those are wins. At Texas, they may lose. Versus Florida, they'll kill them. At Ole Miss, that's going to be a key game. I think that may be the key game. Texas, Ole Miss, Georgia, those are the key players. I think Alabama, and maybe, as we talked about, maybe they cannibalize each other. And Alabama sneaks in there. I don't know. They got Tennessee at home. Tennessee doesn't win road SEC games. And they finish up with UMass and Georgia Tech. I mean, this team could lose 2 games and still be the best team in the country and still win the national championship, Carlton. They're getting in the playoff. And that's what it's going to come down to. Carlton, 928 and 1019. There you go. So that's got to be, Alabama and Texas. You got Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, all top 10 teams, and nobody else is going to have a chance to get in there. Clemson could end up a top 10 team by the time we're done, so they will have played 5 potentially top 10 teams. That's a gauntlet. They get in the playoff with 2 losses. It's not going to matter. Georgia could beat NFL teams. Not the Georgia I watched last week. Did anybody watch a game I watched last week? That team's beatable. I understand everybody has an off game, but that was ugly. I got to go back. I know I missed some of your comments up here. Sorry. I got myself excited. Some of those people that thought McDonald's employees deserved $20. Is that the guys who put the talent fee on you're talking about, Rick? James be really interested in seeing Nebraska get back to its prominence. I've said this all along, and I think Mac brought it up, James, a couple of weeks ago on the show and I think he saw it on some other podcast, comparing Dion to Matt Rule as a program builder. Matt Rule has brought one football program that was in the toilet and without the history, obviously, that Nebraska has at Baylor. You don't get lower than Baylor. They nearly got the death penalty with the way Art Briles left that situation, the total lack of institutional control, the athletes running around like actually literally criminals. And he brought that program very close to getting into a playoff. And then he stupidly took the NFL money and ran. He's doing things the right way at Nebraska. He's got probably the best young quarterback in the country. Not the best quarterback, but the best young quarterback, the best freshman quarterback. I think Nebraska wins a bunch of games this year. Are they back? Somebody brought this up. Paul says they're really good. I do too. I say they're really good. I've told you they're going to get to Ohio State 7-0. They're going to beat Illinois, I think, Friday night. They're going to win at Purdue. They're going to beat Rutgers at home. That's a game everybody's excited about. Rutgers traveling to Nebraska, right? That's 6-0, and they're going to have a tough game at Indiana. Both these teams could be 6-0, by the way, when they get to Bloomington, Indiana. And then I'm going to say they win that game, and they get to Nebraska Ohio State 7-0. They're going to lose that game. It's at Ohio State. But I think they beat UCLA. It's possible they go to Southern Cal and win. Wisconsin at home and Iowa, who can't score points. This team could go 10-2, potentially 11-1. This is a sleeper in the Big Ten. Be careful. Don't sleep on Nebraska. Watching MLB Strike Zone news and listening to me. Well, maybe you ought to listen to them and watch me. That's probably better to listen to me. If you can't, you have to do one. Listening to me probably better than looking at me, I suppose. I'm still trying to figure this one out. Oh, that's not that one. We got that one. Franklin's the GOAT. Georgia could beat NFL teams. We were there. Back down here. Only Carolina ball. Maybe the Patriots. Maybe. Sorry, Paul. Not that show. It's not an NFL show. Georgia nearly lost to Kentucky. Nathan! Nate, how are you, buddy? Good to have you with us. I know we talked about, I got to get you on the show. Nate's doing some great stuff. Absolutely put up a little plug for your show, Nate, and I'll be happy to put it up in the comments. Nate does some great stuff on college football. Played some college football. You know, he's a big Vols fan, if I'm not mistaken. I know we talked about me getting on your show on Sunday morning, and it's going to be a little rough because I got to do my Sunday stream of consciousness, and I'm off for football. So the days are shot, but we'll figure out something at some point, Nate. But anyway, Nate says I nearly lost to Kentucky and could only score one touchdown. Now they're an NFL team. Listen, it's a really good football team. There's no doubt about it. I think I think Texas is the best team in the country. I think Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss. You put these guys in any order you want. They're all good. They're all going to beat each other up. Boy. I may have had a stroke at some point in the last 45 minutes. I don't know. They're all going to beat each other up. A lot of fun. Max says he meant Dave Brown went to the same school as Jones. There you go. Did Dave Brown go to Duke? I'll take your word for it because he was terrible. Daniel Jones is better than Dave Brown. Matt Rule built Temple up as well. Great call, Nate. Not to the same level, obviously, as he built up Baylor and soon to be Nebraska. This team, I'm telling you, is going 11-1 or 10-2. There will be a surprise and maybe a surprise entrant into the playoff. Who knows? This thing is there are going to be so many twists and turns. And I feel like every game is important. People thought the regular season was going to be, was going to be diminished because of the 12-team playoff. I totally disagree. Totally disagree. We're going to see a team come from nowhere. I love Matt. Matt Rule, has done some of the best coaching in college. His time at Baylor, now his time in Nebraska. Nate was a great point with his time at Temple. Didn't belong in the NFL. And I'm not holding that against him. I know people will. So what? Who cares? He's a great college coach. Tim Tebow's a great college quarterback, couldn't play in the NFL. Doesn't diminish what he did in college. Right? And a lot of great college coaches who couldn't coach in the NFL. Some could. Doesn't diminish what they did. Tennessee is loaded with athletes. I can't say the quarterback's name, so I'm just going to say Nico. They got a wonderful quarterback. I've always been unsure if I'm a Josh Heupel fan or not. But I'm not sure Josh Heupel can screw this up. This team is really good. We're going to find out this week. It's not a great Oklahoma team. The defense is really good. The offense has struggled behind, an inexperienced quarterback, pretty much. But it's possible Tennessee goes in there and throttles this Oklahoma Sooner team. And the question is going to become, can they beat the big boys in the SEC? Maybe Tennessee is that surprise team. Right now, they're playoff bound. I don't know how they're not. A lot of football to play, though. No, Nebraska beat Colorado. Nebraska beat. By the way, it's the way they beat these teams, Nate. You don't agree with me with that? They're going to beat. Do I still have their? They destroyed UTEP, which again they should. They destroyed Northern Iowa. They beat teams up the way you should. Everybody's playing cupcakes this time of year. They really dismantled the Colorado team, who, by the way, is not all that good. I don't disagree with you, but they got two of the best players in the country. Travis Hunter should be, and I've said this several times, and I'll keep saying it. He won't win the Heisman, but he should. He's the best player in the country. The kid's playing 100+ plays a game. He's playing on both sides of the ball the entire game, not spot duty. So it isn't just that. They made progress last year, and first you were agreeing with me though about that rule. Now you disagree with me. You caught me off guard. Again, this is not a tough schedule other than Ohio State. Maybe Indiana on the road because Indiana's playing some good football. They just beat UCLA. I don't think UCLA is very good though. So their toughest games are going to be at Ohio State, which is a loss. They get Illinois, who's ranked and playing pretty good football, but they get them at home. Their two toughest games are at Ohio State, at USC. I can see them winning every other game. Do I think they're good? I didn't say they were national championship good. I said they're a surprise team in the Big Ten. And maybe, listen, Oregon's schedule is not very tough either. But if I'm looking for a team to finish second and play Ohio State, Nebraska's as good a pick for me as any. No? Am I wrong, Nate? These conferences are going to be so wide open, man. I mean, think about it. Indiana? No. Illinois? No. Oregon? Yes. Penn State? Probably to get killed, but they could finish second. Rutgers? No. USC? I still don't see it. Iowa can't score enough points. There's no two divisions now. You're not getting to the championship game with, 3 league losses. Michigan? No. Minnesota? No. Northwestern? No. Washington? No. Wisconsin? No. Purdue? No. Maryland? No. How many freaking teams are there in this? UCLA? No. I went through this a couple weeks ago. I'm having deja vu. There's 3 teams that can finish second here. Maybe more. Linda agrees. Well, we'll see. They're going to be at Ohio State 7-0. I'm not saying they're going to beat Ohio State. They're not beat Ohio State good. But Nebraska, listen, when I say Matt Rule's building a program, this program has been irrelevant for the last decade plus. 12 or 13 years since they moved to the Big Ten in 2012. They've been irrelevant. They're relevant right now. They're ranked. They've got the best freshman quarterback in the country. Is any of that disputable, what I just said? Were they irrelevant for the last dozen years or more? Yes. I feel like I've got my years mixed up. It might even be longer than that. Gosh, it's a great story. Not where I want to be. Paul must be doing well on the pick'em. Look at this. I'll get back to your comments here in just a second. Let me get to the let's get to the college football pick'em, and I'll do my picks in a little bit so you guys have them. Where the heck am I? I am 5th in our group, Paul. We still have a mystery fan, 22 wins. One of the ESPN general things. I still don't know who the sports nut is. Paul's 20, got 20. He's 2 games back. Scott Kobe is 4 games back at 18. Beamer Ball, which is Neil Bush, and myself are tied at 17. And then Rick is at 16. And Poppy's picks, Kenny is at 12. And the Mad New Yorker, not surprisingly, has 8 wins for the year. Then we got some guys that have made picks. So there you go. So wide open. Not doing great. I tell you, the teams I have picked to bet, I've talked myself out of so many games so far. Last year I got off to such a great start. And now I'm just, whoever wins in our cigar box. Last year I made about $1,200. And whoever wins seems to have a stinky year, excuse my French, the next year. Nate, man coverage. I thought you were a Knoxville, Nate. Ohio State fan, but live in Knoxville now. No wonder you're all over my Nebraska pick. By the way, when I say Nebraska's good, as I said, they're not all beat Ohio State at Ohio State good. They're not even beat Ohio State at home good. But this team is much better and capable of surprising some people. That's my point. I'm not saying, all I'm saying is Matt Rule's doing a great job at Nebraska. I don't think that's debatable. Anyway, check out Nate's stuff. Subscribe at YouTube to main coverage. And I do believe, Nate, I think, and I hope I'm not wrong because I'll get beat up by Mac. I do believe you have a show. Your show airs on Roku at some point as well. National Streaming Sports. Danny Fuller makes it in from Baltimore. Good thing Danny wasn't here earlier, apparently. I personally don't think Nebraska's that good. That's fine. I personally don't think UCLA is very good either. I don't think you're going to disagree with me, though. I'm not getting a tit for tat. Are you at the game right now? Come on, watch the ball game. You're watching me when you're at the ballpark? What kind of game? What's the score of the game? Danny. 4-2 Giants in the 5th. All right, there you go. Yankees about to go up 5. Charles Woodson won the Heisman over Peyton Manning because they won the games that mattered. Peyton could win big games at Tennessee, but put up big numbers. I think there's a could not or something in there. Travis Hunter could win if Colorado wins some big games. They're not going to happen. That's right. It's not going to happen. I mean, that's the problem, too, is, the best player in the country doesn't always get the award. And by the way, college football has played a whole lot different when Charles Woodson won over Peyton Manning. Every quarterback in the country wasn't putting up, Madden game numbers. Now every quarterback in the country puts up huge numbers. Cam Ward's numbers are going to be astronomical. I still think, and I still will, and I'm going to. It's amazing how we notice some things and we don't notice other things. Cam Ward might be. Tell me somebody, and I don't know. And Nate, maybe you know. Maybe you weren't here at the top of the show, but maybe you know. I can't think of another less recruited quarterback who played as well as Cam Ward has played the last 2 years. 0-star quarterback. This kid nobody wanted coming out of high school. But thank you, Nate. We're struggling a little bit tonight. We can't seem to put thoughts together. That's why I was afraid I might have had a stroke. If anybody knows anything about strokes, look at my eyes, look at whatever, and tell me if I should call my wife to call an ambulance. I'm kidding. I shouldn't joke about stuff like that because people out there have serious issues, and it's just my warped sense of humor. You did call the UCLA ball out. I agree, Danny. Can't leave stars. Can't leave stars for a star. Oh, thanks. And it's the thought that counts. Don't worry about it. Thank you, though, Danny. Danny not only gets up at 5 a.m. to watch a Sunday Stream of Consciousness and watches my appearance on the Big Football Show before that at 8 o'clock here, 5 o'clock his time, but he's also tuning into the show from the ballpark. And I will tell you, Rick, I hope you're still here. It's going to be a close race for the Itch of the Year award. Those who follow the show closely will understand what I'm talking about. We've got a close race between, it used to be, I thought we were retiring the award in honor of Billy Pulver, but we've got a close race between Rick and Kenny, two seasoned veterans on this show, and have tried hard to replace Billy as the top itch, the most valuable itch. But Danny is making a run after joining the Peanut Gallery. I don't know what, 2 months ago, Danny? I'm not even sure. 3 months ago, time flies. I have a very bad relationship with time. Maybe it was 2 years ago. But the most valuable itch is wide open for 2024. We'll have a big award ceremony in December. Danny, I hope you can fly in for it. We'll probably have it over here, maybe at Druthers, maybe Rick, and we'll present a trophy and everything. I'm kidding. Maybe we won't. Maybe it's starting to sound like a good idea. Feeding the Huskies. They listen to you sometimes as well. Slurred speech and mobility on one side of the body. I only have half of the symptoms. I should be fine. Thanks, James. Oh, gosh. Thank God I feel so much better now. Don't forget to remind people of Sunday's show. What am I reminding them about? See? I don't remember. Check out the Stream of Consciousness Sunday mornings. 8:30. Was there something I said remind me about, Rick? Oh, this is getting comical tonight now. This feels like the Stream of Consciousness tonight. I'm all over the place. Oh, my God. Let me give you the picks. I'm going to give you my pick'em games right now, and then we'll go through some other games as well. I'll go through the college pick'em, and you'll get my picks. Right now, I sit 5 games out of first place. Virginia Cavaliers travel to the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. I'm going to take Virginia in this game. The ACC is not, I think it's wide open, by the way. You talk about a league going to cannibalize itself. The SEC is going to do it for different reasons than the ACC, but the ACC is also going to cannibalize itself. I do like them in this game on the road against the Coastal Carolina, who's not quite the hot commodity they were a couple years ago, although they are 3-0 right now. USC goes to Michigan. This game was a 10.5 point Michigan, and this is just a straight up pick 'em, by the way. League, whatever we want to call this, pick 'em, college pick 'em group. During the offseason, before the season started, preseason, Michigan was a 10.5 point favorite. Pretty sure USC is a 6-point favorite right now. I'm going to take USC to win this game. Rutgers goes to Virginia Tech. Rutgers 2-0. I'm going to take the Blacksburg home team here. Virginia Tech to win this game over the Scarlet Knights. Arizona State, a bit of a surprise so far, and a nice comeback win last week on Thursday Night Football against Texas Tech, who cannot play any defense, by the way. I'm going to take Arizona State, the surprising Sun Devils in this game. Big game in the Big 12. Number 12, Utah against number 14, Oklahoma State. It's at Oklahoma State. Cam Rising, I love Cam Rising. I think he's one of the great stories in college football. I love Kyle Whittingham. I really like Mike Gundy. I like the home team here. I still like Utah to win this conference, but I'm taking Oklahoma State in this particular game. TCU will travel to SMU, the newest member of the ACC. TCU with a tough loss last week to one of my other sleepers in the Big 12 in UCF. I'm going to take SMU at home here. Cal, who's really off to a surprising start, gets their first ACC game. By the way, interesting start to Cal's ACC career. They're going to get Florida State this week, who you would think has got to put together some kind of game. I'm taking them just because how many games can they lose in a row? Cal's got to travel to the East Coast. They get Miami next week, I believe, as well. I'm going to take Florida State in this game. I know it's probably not a smart pick. Toledo playing great. One of those group of 5 teams that are in play at Western Kentucky. I'll take Toledo. I think the Rockets have a better chance here. I'm going to take Tennessee on the road. Knoxville Nate to beat Oklahoma. I'm not laying any points, so I'll take them. And Iowa goes to Minnesota. I think the Iowa defense will score enough points to win this game. So there's my 10 picks there, guys. We'll look at some of the other games here in a second as well. Let me get back to your comments. Oh, God. Oh, Friday show. Yeah, Friday, the one-on-one. Great point. Thank you, Rick. I'll bring that up real quick, and we'll bring it up at the end of the show as well. Friday, we have the one-on-one with Keith Engle interview show Friday at 9 a.m. My guest this week will be Gary McKillips. Gary's a podcaster. He's worked for Turner Sports. He's worked for the University of Tennessee. He's worked for Georgia State University. He does some independent reporting for different outlets. But back in the day, back in the 70s, this is because I'm old, Nate, James, sorry. Back in the 70s, Gary worked for WIZR as a sports reporter in Johnstown, New York. I grew up in Perth, about 10 minutes from Johnstown. A lot of my fellow Red Raiders played football for the semi-pro Glove City Colonials in the historic Empire Football League here in the Northeast for the Glove City Colonials, if I didn't say that. Guys like Rick and his brother Bob. Bob's getting inducted into the Semi-Pro Football Hall of Fame, National Semi-Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton this year. But Gary and John Doviak and Bob Bean and Stan Corona, and I'll give you 1,000 others here. Rick gave me a bunch of names. We'll talk more about them. Gary actually was a broadcaster for WIZR, broadcasting those games. I've been a Facebook friend of Gary's for a long time, and I happened to see a post he put up at WIZR, and we got talking about it, and I said, what a small world. I grew up right there, and he mentioned he did high school football games in the Glove City Colonials, and I said, get out of town. So this is really riveting, right? My made-up conversation with Gary McKillips. But I'll have Gary on. We're going to talk about, this guy's interviewed every major name in every major sport. So we'll check him out. We'll talk about his podcast. We'll talk about his career, and we'll talk about his time in upstate New York here. We're going to be a little self-indulgent. Hopefully Rick will be there with lots of questions, and we'll see if we can stump Gary. Whether Gary's going to remember his time 50 years ago here in upstate New York, I don't know. But we're going to have some fun with Gary for sure. Virginia over Paul, don't steal my picks, buddy. I'm trying to catch you. Michigan surprises. Listen, Michigan's defense is really good, and USC's offensive line is a little suspect. So if Michigan's got a chance, it's going to be shutting down that USC offense. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think USC's got enough to get through this game. To give you a couple other games that I like a lot that weren't on this schedule, I talked about Illinois and Nebraska, and obviously there's some disagreement where I think Nebraska is as a football team. They're number 22 in the country. That's all I can say. Okay. North Carolina State at Clemson. I think a very interesting ACC game. Clemson coming off a big victory against App State, who's not a pushover after getting destroyed by Georgia. And I thought, geez, that's how good Georgia is. But then they struggle against Kentucky. NC State, who was again a kind of an interesting choice for a lot of people as an ACC sleeper. They get dismantled by this Tennessee team we keep talking about a few weeks back. This is an interesting matchup, I think, in the ACC. USC at Michigan, we just talked about. Notre Dame is going to have Miami of Ohio coming into, and Miami of Ohio is not very good. Notre Dame has to have style points. They need 66-7 wins to get themselves back into the national discussion. And we'll see if they can this week. I talked about that game. Miami and South Florida. Miami off three really good wins, but three really bad teams. And I've been here before with this team. 8th in the country, a quarterback playing well. The running back transfer, Fernandez, really good, by the way, as well. I think they take it to South Florida. It's the best team they played, and that's not saying much, unfortunately. The bar set pretty low there. True tests are coming from Miami. But right now, they're the favorite in the ACC, I think, by far. Air Force is off. Army will have Rice visiting West Point this Sunday. And Memphis off a really big win at Florida State goes to Navy in a big matchup in the AAC. The AAC, by the way, the AAC is going to have potentially all the military academies in it going forward. I've said for years, just before Army got in there this year, Navy's been there for a bit now. That wouldn't it be cool if we got all these teams into one conference? And it looks like it could possibly happen as Air Force is in discussions with the American Conference to come aboard with the Mountain West about to fall apart. Going to be interesting to see who else the Big 10 goes after, or the Big 12. Boy, here we go again, James. The Pac-12 goes after. Memphis is going to be on the map. UNLV will be on the map, right? Who else could be on the map? A bunch of teams in the AAC they're going to target, most likely. Tulane has been talked about. Those are all, nice little programs. They need some luster. They need to go raid the ACC. I mean, you can say what you want. The names are tarnished right at the moment, Clemson, but it's still a name. It's still a good, consistent football program for the last 4 decades, really. I mean, they've had ups and downs, but they've been a football name, and they won a national championship with Danny Ford 40 years ago. And they need to go after Florida State. Obviously, geography doesn't matter, so just don't let oceans get in your way. Just because the Pacific is over here and the Atlanta's way over there, we don't worry about that stuff anymore. I'm only being a little tongue-in-cheek here, guys. If the Pac-12 wants to get back into the big-time football, and that's why Oregon State and Washington State went to court to fight to keep this trademark and fight to keep the logo and fought to keep the bank account, bringing in Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno, San Diego State's all nice. You need some names. And if I'm them, I may be visiting. And again, it's going to be expensive. But I may go to Florida State and Clemson and Miami. And we need faces of this league. We need you. It's going to take TV money. It's going to take a lot to get those teams to go out there. But if they really want to be a good team, Yeah, all the state schools. Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Arizona. That's a good point. Well, Florida State fits in perfect. Maybe not so much Clemson or Miami. Oh, God. Let me see what other games are coming up this weekend we can talk about a little bit. I got a cat rubbing against my shin. Thursday night, we got South Alabama at App State. Friday, Stanford at Syracuse. Interesting. Syracuse off to a really good start. McCord playing really good at quarterback. Fran Brown doing a really good job changing the culture in upstate New York. Syracuse could be a sleeper, a team to watch out for in the ACC. I've given you one in every league before the season started. I don't know that I'm changing my tune on this one. John Gonzalez, there's our boy from the Sports Authorities. I tell you guys every week, check out the Sports Authorities. One of the best run, maybe the best run group out there. John Gonzalez is excellent, even though I think he's been changing my NFL picks when I send them to him for his little pick 'em over there. I think he's fudging my picks a little bit. Actually, I do pretty bad. Hurricanes looking great so far. Got to play somebody though, John, right? I've been here before. I say all the time, you know, I'm a Hurricane fan really by marriage, but I've got myself hooked during the last couple of years of Mark Rick, through Manny Diaz, and now Marco Cristobal. I've seen this about 4 different times now where this team gets off to a wonderful start, but several of those times they stumbled against teams like Florida A&M or Ball State. South Florida this week. Go out and dismantle a team you're still much better than before you start getting into the best part of your schedule, right? That's the only thing I can say there, John. Let me look at Miami's schedule real quick. Got me all excited here. How does Miami do now that we're seeing how they play? At South Florida, they're going to win. At Virginia Tech at home. Virginia Tech at home, 5-0. At Cal, that's going to be a tough road trip. Cal's playing pretty good. Having to travel out to the West Coast, a lot of distractions. I'm going to give them the win, though. 6-0. At Louisville, toughest matchup so far. Real test for this team. Louisville, well coached by Jeff Brom. Played in the ACC championship game last year. I'm going to give them a win. 7-0. Florida State at home. I can't see any way Florida State, unless they get much, much better, is going to be any good there. 8-0. Duke, 9-0. Georgia Tech, 10-0. Won't be easy on the road. Wake and Syracuse. They could go into that last game at Syracuse undefeated. They'll probably screw up and lose 2 of these games. I'll give them a loss at Louisville. And they go to Syracuse for that last game. It's going to be very interesting. There's a hi, John. John's one of the best. You guys haven't joined the sports authorities, please do so. I don't know yet. Man, I need sleep. Hey, no fudging. That's the problem, John. I meant start fudging my ticket. I said that backwards. They do finally have a quarterback. I've talked about Cam Ward the last few weeks. 0-star recruit. 0 stars. They win 62-0. Danny, I don't know if you're still with me. We're talking about we didn't like running it up. They ran it up in the second half with their second string. I didn't even realize until I looked at the numbers after the show Sunday that their backup quarterback played pretty much the entire second half. So he was out of there 41-0. Cam's okay, a bit overrated. We'll see. The numbers are going to be there because the guy put up great numbers at Washington State last year. And I don't know how you can be overrated as a 0-star recruit. I don't think he's going to be huge on the next level, though. He's kind of small. Miami has to play someone. That's my line. Little sisters of poor. Little sisters of slippery rock. Listen, the schedule's not that tough this year. They could slip at Louisville, but there's a decent chance this team could run the table. But not this team. You know why, Danny? This team always blows it somewhere. Always blows it somewhere. Why are you not at the watching the game, Danny? Little Sisters of Slippery Rock. By the way, I've been saying Little Sisters of the Poor A&M in my. Oh, I love you too, buddy. You're the best. You are, I swear to God, at the game and watching me. How dedicated is that? Going to be a tough race for that itch award. Danny's doing everything. Rick, you better pick it up a little. Rick's done a pretty good job of itching or, being the itch. More so in our chat room than here, I guess. 5-3 Giants in the 6, our update on the Oriole game. Hey, look at Notre Dame. Well, that's true. Notre Dame's got to run scores up now. We talked about Illinois and Nebraska, San Jose State at Washington State. Washington State with a nice win. Nice rivalry win over Washington last week. Marshall's going to go to Ohio State, NC State, Clemson. We talked about Florida, and how is Billy Napier not getting fired? He loses to Mississippi State out of there, doesn't he? Indiana off to a 2-0 start, gets Charlotte. What else is interesting here? Houston and Cincinnati. Kansas, very disappointing. One of the most disappointing starts, I would say, in the country. Kansas losing UNLV last week, losing to Illinois, I think the week before. They're going to travel to West Virginia. That's a tough place to play. Their quarterback has not bounced. Daniels not bounced back from injuries the way some others have, and they lost their offensive coordinator this year. And maybe the combination of those two is taking a luster off that franchise. But just the fact that we're talking about Kansas as being a disappointment is probably a step up from where they normally are. Rice and Army, as I said, looking for the other interesting games in my mind. If there's any interesting games you guys have, bring them out. UCLA will go to LSU. James Martin will be looking for a big bounce back win against a California team after losing to USC in the opening week. 1-1 against USC this year, as they also beat the University of South Carolina last week with some help from the refs. But you know what I say about that. Georgia Tech at Louisville. That's kind of an interesting matchup there. Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn, a bit of a disappointment under Hugh Freeze so far. He better get it going soon. Arkansas has played better than expected, but the wins are not necessarily following. Central Connecticut at Massachusetts. There's a game that nobody will be paying to go see. I talked about Memphis at Navy. Vanderbilt at Missouri. Missouri will probably win big there. Vanderbilt loses to Georgia State last week. UTEP goes to Colorado State. East Carolina at Liberty. Northwestern at Washington could be an interesting matchup. UConn will get Florida Atlantic. UConn and UMass, terrible, terrible teams. Cal at Florida State, as I said. I don't care. Oklahoma, we know at Oklahoma. Big game. UNO Monroe. Arch Maney's going to put up big numbers this week. Don't get excited. Cam Ewers is still the quarterback. Baylor will go to Colorado. Should be another win for Deion. Baylor's not that good, despite their win against Air Force last week. The new member of the Pac-12, Fresno State, goes to New Mexico. Purdue will go to Oregon State. Kansas State at BYU. And on we go. See what we got here. Very dedicated, for sure, if we're talking about Danny. BC's going to get, I think BC's got a bye. No, BC's got Michigan State, sorry. I'm going to like BC in that game. Listen, BC's played very well. They were very game in that game, at Missouri last week. You're beating one of the better teams in the SEC at home And they gave them all they could handle. Even when Missouri looked like they were going to pull away there late in the third quarter, BC fought back gamely. And Bill O'Brien is a really good football coach, underrated. He's not a terribly likable guy when you listen to him and talk to him. Raiola is just tremendous. I've said this. Where were you before when I talked about the best freshman in the country? Nebraska program on the rise, and I got beat up by Knoxville Nate. Maybe rightfully so. I don't know, for saying they're a potential sleeper to get to the Big Ten championship game. We all like Raiola, and again, I love Matt Rule. Matt Rule does great. He did great building a program at Temple, which got him a job at Baylor, which was in the toilet, this close to the death penalty, and he took them to the doorstep of a playoff. Now he's rebuilding a historic program at Nebraska that's been irrelevant for 2 decades. Not 2 decades. Well, maybe 2 decades. 12 years anyway. Set up phone for no spoil, DVR, coffee, and baseball with breakfast. BC wins this week. I like BC this week. Never forget that 84 Orange Bowl game. Miami beat Nebraska. Hopefully both teams are back where they belong on top. That'd be interesting. There's certain sports where certain teams are good, the sports are better. Nebraska is a historic name. Miami, not as much. And again, I'm a Hurricane fan, but people get excited and they think Miami's a blue blood. Miami's only had a 20-year run of being a good program from that 1984 game to 2004. They were really good. They were at the top of the sport. The very top, and they're a polarizing program, right? You loved them or you hated them, but it isn't like they've been great for decades like Alabama, or I shouldn't say great every year, but they're not historic franchises over multiple decades like Alabama and who else? Notre Dame, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas. Even Texas Texas I'll give it to. But I think the sport's better when these teams are good. It's the sport's better when Alabama's good. The sport's better when Notre Dame's good. Right? We might go a few minutes long. I don't know if I'm kicking anybody off anything on Roku. Hopefully not. We can say goodbye to maybe I'll say goodbye to the Roku audience just to be safe. Actually, I wonder if Robert Butler kicks us off at 8:00. I don't even know. I'm going to stay on. Where was I? Some good rest, Keith, everyone. Thank you, CA. It's Pig Latin. I can get some rest. I got some good rest last night. We're starting to get there. USC, a trap game for Michigan. A trap for USC, I'm guessing, because they're favored in that game, Danny, for sure. You might be biased in your opinion there, Danny. Syracuse has a really good quarterback. Can surprise. Fran Brown's done a really good job of changing the culture there in a hurry, bringing that winning attitude. They played really well. They got some really good receivers there, too. And again, I think they can surprise in the ACC. It's going to be interesting to watch that ACC just probably beat each other up. Danny Fuller, I think I'll make your picks for you, Danny, if you want. Get some love by Chevelle and a great. CA is our eclectic commentator tonight for sure, as most days he is. And Jimmy Johnson from Port Arthur, Texas. Jimmy Johnson from Oklahoma State, then Miami, then the pros. We all know how he did. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to call it a night. You guys did a great job tonight. I'll be on Friday, one-on-one with Keith Engle, with Gary McPhillips, podcaster, former WIZR representative here. announcer, I should say, up here in upstate New York in the 70s called the Blood Colonial Paramount football games, along with some high school games and some other stuff. We're going to talk about Gary, about his interesting career, and we're going to take him back 50 years to see how much stuff you can remember. And I'll be on with the Major League Baseball update Friday at 3 and Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness. We'll see you then. Guys, Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talks College Football Huddle. Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good night. See you next week. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.